Chapter 17. A Sudden Meeting. Day after day, the bright spring weather continued. Windows and ports were left open with impunity, and after they were at the latitude of the lower lakes, Erie and Ontario, it was even warmer. Pat chose quiet places he knew about for anchoring. Villages, camps, and resorts were passed by as they cruised, though it was a temptation to stop at some of them. Marjorie had thrilling experiences in identifying water birds, a particular hobby of hers that Penny encouraged. When Pat was at the steering wheel, he was quite likely to have Marjorie stationed nearby, asking as many questions as she could. Patrick Ryan liked the little girl, now shooting up rapidly with the healthful life she had been living. In among the shipping at Cleveland moved the Penny Allen. There was to be a day ashore, though Adra refused to join the rest and was not left on board alone. Pat and Anne Mary took turns with the errands they had, and Philip, who was doubtful about leaving Anne Mary alone with Adra, returned to the boat when he ran across Pat. "Take your time, Pat," said he. "I'm through and going back." Penny said that she had some very important shopping to do, and Marjorie was delighted to be admitted to what had been a secret between Adra and Penny. It was what Penny called the great idea, and Marjorie's eyes were wide indeed when it was imparted. Seriously, but with huge enjoyment, she started to the stores with her sister. At dinner time, the four Allens met by arrangement at a quiet place. "With all our packages," said Penny, "and the need to save time, we'll have dinner not too far from our boat. And I'll need both you boys to help carry what Marjorie and I may pick up." It was not hard to believe that, the boys declared. Accordingly, at the appointed hour, Philip was there, announcing that Pat was at the boat, having bought groceries and any other needed supplies. "Machinery is all right. There's plenty of fuel, and the engineer is still happy with his bride," said Philip, while Penny told him that he was ridiculous. But it seemed a good world that day, with everyone well and happy. Of course they were going to find Adra's people. Both boys groaned when at the close of the meal they saw the array of packages which Penny and Marjorie produced. "Gosh sakes, we need a truck," Jimmy declared with some exaggeration. "They're not heavy, Jimmy, just awkward." "I'll say," remarked Philip, tucking the biggest bundle under his arm. "If you keep bringing them out, we'll need a taxi. Are they worth the price?" "Yes, indeed. But this is really all. We can make it by bus, just 2 or 3 packages apiece. Here, Margie, you carry these 3 little ones." The boys could not restrain their grins, and even Marjorie and Penny laughed when Phil asked them how they managed to get that far with their packages. "Oh, we just hung things on our fingers and tucked some under our arms," Penny explained. "The art of shopping, Jimmy, as handled by our expert sisters." Philip had paid the bill and left a tip, and now they were just turning to leave the table, Penny assigning the last bundles, when Phil caught sight of someone he knew. "Look who's coming in!" he exclaimed. And there, entering the door, was Peter Wyland, their good friend. Marjorie, startled for fear Philip meant somebody was after Adra, peered behind Penny when she caught Philip's remark. But Peter, who could not very well help seeing the Allens directly opposite the door, beamed with surprise and pleasure and came toward them, his hand outstretched to Penny first. She managed to shake hands in spite of the bundles, and quick explanations followed. "We are in the city for a little necessary shopping," said Philip. "This is the first big port we've made since we started our cruise in the Penny Allen. Perhaps Penny has written you about that." "Yes, a little. I think that I've been neglected," said Peter, though smiling. "I was to hear more, however, when there was time." "It has been a pushing time, Peter," returned Penny. "Oh, we have ever so much to tell you." "Can't you come out to see the cruiser, Peter?" asked Jimmy. I suppose you were after some dinner, though. My meal can wait. I'll take you to the dock in my car at once, if you want to go now. Or if you have more shopping to do, there may be some places still open." "Good," said Marjorie. "Now we can carry some more things." Everybody, including Peter, laughed at that. But it did make a difference. Penny was wondering what they should do with Adra if Peter were shown over the boat. But Peter was safe. They could tell him, if necessary. The big stores were closed, but they were able to add fruit and candy and other things from delicatessens and drugstores. Peter naturally handed Penny to the seat beside him, and since they were quite near the dock, Peter took them about the quieter streets, not so full of traffic. At several crossings, however, they were blocked for some time, which provided an opportunity for the exchange of news. Peter was finishing some business here and was driving on almost at once. Soon he would be in New York for several weeks possibly, or for only a few days. It depended, he said. "Want a cheap trip to Florida with us?" asked Jimmy. "Are you going to take passengers?" "Only real nice ones," said Penny. That would be fine if Peter could go. "I hope I come within that category," said Peter. "Do you mean it? Could you take me in? There's nothing I'd like better, and I might be able to manage it." "I don't see why we couldn't, Peter," said Philip. "We would not charge you any fare, since you're practically our best friend." "If I go, Phil Allen, there will be some kind of fare, or sharing of expense at least." At the dock, Peter said that he would have to wait to see the cruiser later on. He had to meet a man, his last appointment, beside the important one of having something to eat. Then he was to drive on to a small town where he would spend the night and meet a man in the morning. They all were consumed by curiosity about Peter's job, but he was very vague and did not tell them anything specific. They all resisted making inquiries, even though they were surprised that he did not tell them what his business was. However, they had a secret too, so Peter had a right to his. "He may have been too much interested in the Allen affairs to think much about his own," said Penny afterward, in answer to Marjorie. The probable dates of their arrival at New York were given, also the address of a hotel at Boston where mail would be kept for them. Peter gave Philip a short list of his stops, with dates, and the brief visit was over. "Peter Wyland is a friend worth having," said Philip. "I'd like to be in business with him. He's clean and straight as they make 'em, and smart besides." "Do you like him better than Charles, Philip?" asked Marjorie, looking at Penny, however, to note the effect of her question. But Penny apparently paid no attention, and was, in fact, thinking of Adra as they brought their bundles to the cruiser. But Penny heard Philip's reply. "Why, Marjorie, ask a silly question like that? Charles Curtis is a swell guy, and almost part of the family. If we needed any more brothers and sisters, Charles and Mary would fill the bill." "I don't think they want to be exactly that," returned Marjorie. "I was thinking which I like best, and I don't know. Peter is newest." "I wouldn't try to decide, Marjorie," advised Penny. "We like all our friends separately and on their own account." But Penny had an idea that she might someday have to decide in regard to something more than friendship. They found Pat and Anne Mary busy cooking. Adra was lying down in her berth and reported a day not too uninteresting. She had been reading a book brought out to her by Pat. A supply of magazines was dumped by her, and she brightened over the news poured out by Penny and Marjorie. Some mysterious bundles were chosen from the rest and brought to the girls' cabin by the boys, and these were appropriated by Adra with a laugh. "I'll not open them yet," said she. "I hope everything fits," she added. "So do we," replied Penny. "If they don't, there's still hope. We'll be stopping at several places yet. But we want you to be with us the next time, and that close little hat will be just the thing to—" "Shh," warned Marjorie. Aunt Mary's coming." There was a surprise on foot, it was evident, but the girls were surprised to feel the quiver of a starting motor and boat. "Why, are we going?" Penny asked Aunt Mary, who came in. "Yes, Pat does not want to stay in among the rest of the shipping. He's going on to another little harbor for the night. He thinks Adra would feel better about it." "Oh, thanks. I would. I feel safe only when we're away from everything. I suppose it's silly." "It isn't silly at all, though nobody is after you, as far as we know." "You will tell me, won't you?" "I make no promises," said Aunt Mary, "only to take care of you. But if you need any warning, you'll get it from me." "Thank you, Aunt Mary. I've been thinking of taking some other name." "And very sensible it will be. We've got to account for you some way, and how will it be not to have any name for the passenger we're going to take on at New York or somewhere?" "Exactly," said Adra with emphasis. "I'll be thinking it up, Aunt Mary, while I'm deciding at what place I'll join the cruise." Aunt Mary and Penny left Adra with Marjorie and joined the boys on the bridge. When they were safely out of earshot of the girls, Aunt Mary said quietly, "I wanted to tell you when Adra wasn't around. While you were shopping and Pat was gone for a little, I had a call. Of course, you might know that it would come then if we were watched. I had everything pretty well shut up, you know, and there wasn't any handy way of getting into the Penny Allen. Moreover, we were swinging out, not close as we were when you came back. Adra, with her curtains drawn and the cabin door locked, wasn't to be seen. I was picking up magazines and one thing and another." "Hello," he said. "Is this Mrs. Patrick Ryan?" "It is," I said, and waited. "I've a registered letter here for Miss Adra Spencer," he said. "What's that got to do with me?" I said. I was just stalling for time and wondering what to say. "Well, I've been told that Miss Spencer is on this boat coming from Lake Superior," he said, real peppy and sharp. "If I can get this letter across to you and you'll have her sign for it, I'll be obliged." "If it's important enough to be registered," I said, "I guess you hadn't better throw it over. And besides, there isn't any Miss Adra Spencer on board, and never has been." Just then he happened to see Pat coming along the dock, so this man just kind of faded out of sight while I looked to see what he saw. Pat didn't even see him. When I told him, he scouted around and saw a fellow like I described. That was one reason we pulled right out, Penny, though Philip did not know. "I see," said Penny. "They still suspect us. His calling her Spencer proves that. Do you think Adra heard any of what went on?" "I don't think she heard what he said. She must have peeped out, for she asked me what that man wanted. I told her that he had a registered letter for somebody, but it wasn't for any of us. It wasn't, was it?" "No, I think not. I wonder what Adra's real name is. Maybe it isn't even Adra, but she thinks it is. At least that is familiar to her." Penny had many things on her mind that evening, but she laid most of them aside to enjoy the plan with Adra and Marjorie. There were chuckles and laughs, and much whispering while Adra was rigged up in her new garments. There was little to be done to the neat street dress which they had bought for her. As they were going into a warm climate, it had not been thought best to buy a heavy dress. It was a pretty light brown dress with a full skirt that swung out as Adra twirled around. Over it went a dark brown wool coat. But the crowning touch was a close little hat with a brim and false golden brown curls showing a little. When Adra had it on, the curls looked real and changed her looks considerably. It was astonishing what a difference it made. "Come on and give the boys the surprise of their lives," urged Penny. "I told them that we wanted a conference." Aunt Mary, whom the girls met just outside the door of their cabin, started back in surprise for a moment. But Aunt Mary was quick. No stranger had boarded the cruiser. "Oh, it's you, is it? So that's it. And a good idea, too. I'd never know you, Adra. Good. Come on up, Anne Mary, and see what the boys think. Everybody was duly impressed by Marjorie's distinct announcement. I have the pleasure of introducing our guest, Miss Grace Rogers of... And then Marjorie giggled, her confidence deserting her. Well, for the love of Mike, Jimmy exclaimed, and Philip, with a look of surprise but without a word, crossed the short distance between them in his most elegant manner to take Adra's hand and turn her around gently. Get the view of our young friend, everybody, he said. Adra, that's good. Why the lighter hair? Think you can keep your own from being seen? Adra took off her hat then and showed the way that the waving locks had been fastened to the hat. This won't do, perhaps, very long, she explained. I think I'll have to have a wig later, though I hope I'll know who I am before that's necessary. I'll keep my hat on when we get off, if I ever dare do it at all. You will. You have to see what places are familiar. Put the hat on again, Adra, urged Penny. Phil, doesn't she look just like Grace Atkins, with those curls around her face? And we thought Rogers wasn't an uncommon name. Now we've got to get into the habit of calling her Grace. I see, said Philip. You surprised us all right, Adra, said Jimmy, viewing her critically. I knew about some new clothes, but not about the disguise. It's not a bad idea. Grace Rogers. Grace. Have a chair, Grace. Jimmy would have kept rattling on if Philip had not interrupted. Enough, young man. We were just talking to Pat about what route we'll take after we leave. You know, we talked of going to Boston and New York. Philip, said Adra, I have been to Boston, but I am pretty sure I have never lived there. When you spoke of it just now, I had a few fleeting impressions of Boston streets, but I don't believe I ever lived in either Boston or New York. Couldn't one have a country place, a big one? I had a dream last night that I remembered. We'll take you up and down the Hudson, Adra. I mean Grace, and see if you recognize anything there. And if you have lived in some quiet place away from the cities, it isn't hopeless by any means about our finding someone that knows all about your having been taken away, even if they do not know you personally. Oh dear, sighed Adra. I wonder if I shall ever feel safe and happy again. Of course you will. End of chapter 17.